Welcome, everybody, to the Engineering Challenge iWire Act. I am Donna Robinson, and I am from Nebraska, and I am one of the ICMs for the Engineering Challenge this year.
And I am Chrissy Burr, the co-ICM for the Engineering Challenge this year. We are so excited to be welcoming you in just a couple weeks to Global Finals. So we wanted to walk through just a few things as final reminders. This should not be new information for you, but just some good things to keep in mind. So a few notes that we had about weight and transporter check-in. When you arrive in Kansas City, we're going to ask that one or two team members and one team manager optionally, if the team wishes. If it's a secondary level team and they want to go by themselves, that's totally fine. But if you're elementary and want to come along, we totally understand. Should bring your transporter weights in your team provided container to the check-in area, and we'll go through those maps here in a minute. They were also included in the team manager letter. 1 hour to your scheduled performance time. The whole team doesn't need to come, just one to two team members is great. And really make sure that you bring that container with you that we can fully seal with all of the transporter and all weights inside. So while you're doing that, everybody else is going to start getting your stuff and moving that to the pre-prep area. We only ask also, you may only check in one transporter that is going to be used in your presentation. You can have backup transporters that you bring to check in case something doesn't pass. But ultimately, we are looking for one transporter and 10 weights that are going to be used in the presentation. You are allowed to have materials with you during the presentation in case something breaks for repairs, but you can't have a full backup transporter if your initial transporter fails. You'll need to use that transporter that passed check-in. A reminder that your transporter, which includes your propulsion system, has to be a single device. So all parts of that propulsion system and the transporter cannot come apart during weight transport testing. So no remote controls, external systems, attached or unattached, are going to meet that requirement. So just double check that that's the case. We'll take a look at it during check-in, but the appraisers that are watching your transport tests during the presentation will also be looking for this. So know that if it is determined that it is not a single device, even if it passes check-in, you may not receive points for your weight transport tests if they determine this doesn't meet the requirements. We also ask that you clearly number each weight 1 through 10. We want this to be easy to read for the appraisers because they need to validate which weights are being placed on your transport for each test. So when you're thinking about things, if there's enough contrast, so don't use a black marker on a dark gray weight, for instance, we want to have enough contrast so that they can easily determine which weights. That's just going to make everything go faster and easier when you're doing your transport tests during the presentation. Also, a reminder that the weights must not be any part of the transporter, including the propulsion system. And a note, should we need to, the appraisers do have the right to recall the transporter and or weights after your team's presentation to verify that all requirements are met. So we aren't going to do that for everybody, but if repairs are made or there's any questions, they do have that right. We'll give it back to you. So we'll be doing this quickly right after the presentation time, and then we reweigh it. You'll be part of that process. And then that will be returned to your team as well. So we don't expect that to happen for most teams, but if it does happen, please know to expect that. And then that's a normal part of the process that might happen. For the weight transport test itself, just a few reminders. All unused weights must be placed in a designated weight area that will be located near the start line on the transporter, and we'll walk you through where that is. It will be close to the weight transport test course. You're not going to have to run far to do that between weight transport tests. A weight transport test begins when the first place the transporter touches the cord crosses the start line. And then it is the transporter itself that has to use its propulsion system to move from behind the start line to cross the finish line while carrying the weights. The appraisers will be watching that very closely. And if that doesn't happen, your test will be deemed unsuccessful. You can do as many weight transport tests as you choose during the 8-minute presentation. You have to do one to get credit, but you can choose to do as many as you need. And you can use the entire 8-minute presentation time for those weight transport tests. Even if you finish your story or your other presentation, you can keep going up until the time that the timekeeper announcer calls time that the 8 minutes have ended. The official weight transported is calculated by adding all of the weights, the weight of each weight transported during a single successful weight transport test. So if you complete multiple tests, we've got an Excel spreadsheet that we're going to put them all in, and whatever the highest score is for that single successful weight transport test is what we're going to use. So you don't have to pick one. We're going to take care of all of that for you. We'll record everything you do and then give you the best test as what your score will be. A few general presentation reminders. We ask that you review the safety guidelines from the rules of the road, especially when presenting your daring display. We know that sometimes, with the contemporary circus theme, that you may be doing some things that some people might consider risky for your daring display, but we ask that you do an assessment and deem that it's safe and that it can be done in a safe manner. But keep in mind that if the appraisers do feel that any activity that is happening is not safe for the teams or appraisers or audience, they do have that right to stop that activity that they feel is unsafe. So we just ask that you use good judgment there and make sure that those daring displays and all parts of your presentation can be completed safely. Also, please make sure that all of your team members keep their shoes or foot coverings with reasonably impenetrable soles on at all times. This is just really to protect team members from anything that could be on the floor. This means even during daring displays and things, you can't take those off and do your daring display and put them back on. The appraisers will stop your team and have them put their shoes back on before they proceed. And also any team members who are participating in the transporter and weight placement, they need to wear closed-toed shoes. So we'll be checking that during the prep process and making sure everybody has the shoes on that they need to. Also, something to keep in mind is that your team must not involve the audience or the appraisal team in your presentation in any team challenge. So what this means is that you can't signal or communicate or gesture for applause or interaction in any way. We do recognize that the audience may be excited by your presentation and erupt in spontaneous applause or cheering. That is totally fine. If audience members who are not your team manager do that, that will not be considered interference as the fault of the team, and you won't get a deduction. But if you do intentionally solicit that audience participation and a response, the appraisers, depending on what happens, may actually assess a deduction. So just keep that in mind and be mindful of that while you are working through your presentations. And now I'm going to hand it over to Donna.
Okay. So we have the weight transport test course. It does look a little differently than R1, but it is built to the exact same specifications as in the challenge. So this will be provided and set up in the presentation area. All the tests will be conducted on that test course. You will not be able to practice on the test course ahead of time. Each team will have a new cord that they will be required to place on the weight test course during the 8-minute presentation time. And we will have the appraisers walk through this process with each team prior to your presentation. So our appraisers will have the team members involved come and physically attach, so we're sure you understand how the carabiner works and how to attach the weights, just so we're comfortable and you are comfortable, the team members, in the process. So it does look a little differently, but all the angles and measurements are to the specifications. So we realize it looks a little wonky, but it is actually 90-degree angles and square. Okay. So now we are looking at our site flow. The first one is for elementary and secondary university. So we need, again, the transporter and your weights in the team provided container. We need a couple of team members A team manager can come if so desired, and this is 60 minutes before your presentation time. You need to go into the engineering check-in, which is room 2101, and that will be all teams will go there, and you will check in your transporter and weight. Again, the specifications of the process of that is in the challenge itself. You will leave your container and the transporter and weights in that area, and those will be retrieved later when you're in the prep zone for whichever level you're at. The rest of the team and all your props and everything else needs to go to the pre-prep area 50 minutes before your presentation time. When you're looking at the map, off to the far right, you will come down from it's a freight elevator that comes from the prop storage above. Make sure you find that elevator ahead of time. It is a little bit hidden. We hope to have signage up there, but make sure you know where that freight elevator is and arrive there in plenty of time to come down that elevator and then follow the maps. You'll come out of the elevator, and then elementary and secondary, you're going to go straight through some double doors, and then the table will be in that open corner there. Once you're at the pre-prep area, wait there until somebody tells you to move or helps you to move and move you along. Then once you go from the pre-prep area and somebody either come in and gets you, or you are directed to move, for the elementary and secondary university level, you're just going to go down. It's a very wide hallway, and there will be an area that you will go through the prep process again. And they are going to double check your paperwork. Again, check that we have the shoes and all and everything that you have is safe and accounted for on your expense report. Once you were through prep area, when it's time for your performance, you will move into the room, and there will be a launch area. Once in the launch area, the timer announcer will address the team. The weight transport appraisers, one of them for sure will come and get the appropriate team members to go through the process of using the tester and how to attach the carabiner and the paracord and the sandbag weight. And then you'll move back to the launch area and begin the performance once the timer announcer addresses you. You will exit off that same side. There is another door to the back of behind the audience. And then you will be able to either go back down that original hallway and back up to prop storage, or wherever, whatever you decide to do with your props and items. So this is the middle level. Again, you will be going into that elevator from prop storage up above. Give yourself plenty of time to get there. The team with the container with the transporter and weights, again, 60 minutes before your scheduled presentation time, should be at the engineering check-in in room 2101. 50 minutes before, the rest of your team and all your props and such that you need for your performance should be at the pre-prep area. This is a fairly narrower hallway, and it can get a little congested, but we will have that as organized as best we can. Again, if somebody is not there, just wait at the designated pre-prep area. They will make sure you're there with all your things, and then someone will come and get you to move you to prep. And then they will go through your paperwork, double check shoes, make sure everything looks safe and everything is accounted for on your expense report. Once you've gone through the prep area, you'll go into a door which will take you right into the launch area. Again, the timekeeper announcer will address your team. The weight tester appraiser will take someone to look over the tester device and have you practice. After the performance, you are going to go out There will be a gap between the chairs of the audience, and you'll come down out a big door at the end, and then you can go back into the elevator and up if needed, or out, whichever way you want to do with your props and such. So that's kind of how the flow works. Again, we have a lot of teams and such, so make sure you're organized and have all their props and people enough to carry them, so that we can keep it in a good manner flowing. And understand there'll be other teams, so try to keep your stuff all together and your team all together.
All right, so now we're going to address some questions. Thank you all for your wonderful questions. Many were similar, so we have consolidated them into some general areas. What most of you were very curious about is how our setup is going to be in our spaces. Well, I don't have a photo of our actual performance space. They are in large ballrooms. They have short nap carpet, and there will be plenty of space for you to perform. So if you're looking here at the audience, and is in the front, so for secondary level, you'll come in from the left-hand side of this diagram will be your prep area, or not prep, and then into launch. And then you'll come from the left side into the performance area. The weight transport tester will be on the front right of the presentation area. There will not be a lot of space in front of the weight transport tester. There'll be enough for appraisers and team members to walk around it, but it will be to the front right of the space in both the elementary, secondary, university level site and in the middle level site. There's arrows there, so the start line post will be to the farthest to the right and the finish line post near the middle of the performance area. Your team can use the entire space. I don't have exact measurements of the space, but they are large rooms, and you will not be confined to a specific area. There'll be a line taped likely in front of the audience just to make sure that the audience doesn't creep into your space with performing, but you have that entire space to perform in, and the appraisers will get up and move. So don't worry about where the appraiser table is. They will be in front by the audience or wherever they need to be to see what you're doing, and you can use that entire space behind the transport test to the side of the transport test for your presentation. So again, what is the size of that area? What is the doorway? I guess I got ahead of myself here a little bit. But you will have to go through a single doorway. So there is single size doors that go into that presentation area. So you should be prepared to go from prep into that launch area in a door measuring 30 by 76. And so you will not have a lot of time for assembly once you get through that doorway in the launch area. We have very tight 18-minute team schedules, so please keep that in mind and prepare for that. And as I said, the launch area will be on one side and it will be marked with tape, and then you will come in when the time begins and be able to use that entire space. They are rooms with closed doors. So while there is some carryover noise, it is better than like a gym or a big open space because there are walls. However, the presentation area itself isn't near any of the walls. So just keep that in mind. You know, you've got a lot of space, but the walls are it's large. So, it'll be a long distance to get to those walls. One last question that we had that was just kind of a general things like battery operated LED lights, Bluetooth speakers, mobile phones, etc. allowed to be used during the Central Challenge presentation? The answer is yes, absolutely. Your team may use all of those things. You need to just make sure that they're listed on your expense report. Many of those items are exempt, so we just ask that you still list them, but then review this rules of the road in section 7F through H for any items that are exempt. You can just write a $0 exempt amount on that expense report, but they should still be listed. So no concerns. Please keep in mind if you are using things like Bluetooth or, cell services or things like that, we can't guarantee what that may look like in the site. So just keep that in mind. We cannot guarantee good Wi-Fi signals, good cell service, or any of those things. So make sure that you consider that and test that if you are relying on that as part of your presentation. Those were all of the questions that we had as that came in. We hope that this helped you all to get you prepared. Again, please review those team manager letters. They include a lot of this same information. And good luck. And we look forward to seeing you in Kansas City.
Good luck, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.